So today when we're working with using the elimination method to solve it, we're going to find out that sometimes we're going to need to rename one of the equations. On Monday, we're going to learn how that sometimes we're going to have to rename both of them. So today we really have to make sure that we understand renaming an equation. And today you're only going to have to deal with renaming one of them. We have a bunch of practicing one of them for today. So it says when you are going to rename, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply one of the equations by a value that will create those opposite. Remember, we want opposite x terms or opposite y terms. So we are going to create them. We're going to make it happen by renaming one of the equations. Now, in your lesson 5.3, one of the examples that they do, they use the subtraction method. I stay away from the subtraction method because typically students don't do it correctly. I think if we just rename by multiplying rather than sometimes using subtraction, we're going to be more successful. So we're only going to use the renaming by multiplying and then adding our equations together. Isaiah?
So we just multiply by negative.
So let's look at this first one. We have some options. In fact, there's an endless number of options. You can rename these to whatever you want, and you can create opposites. You can even work with fractions, multiply by a fraction. But you don't want to make your life, more work, right? You want to try and make it as easy as you can. I want you to tell me, what could we multiply the second one by that would create opposite x terms? Isaiah?
Negative 1.
-1, because if we took -1, remember what do we have to do when we do multiplying in an equation? We have to do it to what? Both sides. Every piece, right? It has to be done to both sides. Every piece of that equation. Well, let's just right now zero in on if we multiply 2x by a -1, it would become a what? A -2x, and then we would create our opposites. Okay, that's one option. That's what we are going to do. But what might be another option? Ricky?
Multiply the second 2x by -1.
Well, that's the one we're going to do. See, we're going to take this equation, this one, and we're going to multiply it by a -1. So we're going to rename the second equation. So we could rename the first equation by multiplying it by a -1 instead, because then we'd create the -2x in that one and keep this one a positive 2x, right? Okay, that's another option. What would even be another option yet? That's another option yet. Multiply the second one by -1, that would create opposite x's. Multiply the first one instead by -1, that would still create opposite x's. Could we create opposite y's pretty easily?
Yes.
What could we do?
2 times 5.
I want to see some new hands though. I don't want these guys answering all the questions. Thanks, Christian.
Take the top 1 divided by 5.
Divide?
Multiply by 5.
How about we multiply? We could multiply the first one by 5 because then we have a 5y, which would be the opposite of a -5y. So we have some options, but we're going to take this second one and we're going to take it times -1. So -1 times in parentheses 2x, subtract 5y, equals, and then we'll take -1 times the other side, which is just the 13. Now, from observation of most papers, when we have a negative being distributed and we have subtraction in that factor we're going to distribute it over, things don't always go so well. So let's change this to addition, and what's the opposite of 5y? What's the opposite of 5y? Negative. So here's shrinking this down. So that way then we'll multiply properly. Okay, so now we're going to do distributive property. We're going to, so what's the new name on the left side? Blaine? -2x plus 5y, that's the new name on the left side, and the right side's name is? -13 now. So in your notes I would like you to write, this is the second equation renamed. And why is that important? Well, because we can't add it back to its old name, we have to add it to the other one, and sometimes it's hard to remember which one that is, what is the other one, because if we rename it now, it doesn't look like either of them. So we've renamed the second one, so we have to go back and add it to the first one. So we're going to take our 2x plus y, the first one, and write it down, and add to it the second equation in its new name. And now we're going to do just what we did yesterday. Add them together, one of the variables should eliminate. If when you're adding, one of them doesn't eliminate, there's a problem. You better go back and revisit your renaming. Okay, so what eliminates this time?
X's.
X's, that's what we were trying to eliminate, weren't we? So what do we have?
6x.
6y equals negative 18, yeah. Okay, go ahead and finish solving that for y. What's our y value? Agree with me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So now we need to go and solve for the what?
X's.
The x, okay. We have lots of choices where to put it. We could go to put it in the first equation, we could put it in the second equation, or we could put it in the second equation's new name. Well, typically, when you rename something, chances are you've also sometimes just made those coefficients not even as friendly to work with. So which one do you suggest we use to
First
solve
one.
for x? The very first one, 2x plus 5y?
Yeah.
So let's go and, no, 2x plus y, not 5y. Equals negative 5. And we're going to sub in negative 3 for our y value. And solve our equation for x. So go ahead and finish solving that for x. Showing your steps of work like we know we always do. Anybody agree with me? Can't catch me making any mistakes today, huh? Okay, what's our solution then? Ordered pair -1, -3. Our solution is written as, some of you are being lazy about this, write it as an ordered pair. Yes, Isaiah?
Oh no, sorry, I didn't have my hand up. I was just.
Oh, okay. So our solution is ordered pair -1, -3. If we solved it by the graphing method, what would happen? So the lines would be across where they would intersect. That's the ordered pair that they would share. They would both have in common, right? It's the only ordered pair they should have in common. Okay, I'm not going to make you do check boxes today. Okay? I want your focus to be this. I want your focus to be this. Do a really good job of making sure that you rename your equation, and then when you add them together, when you're adding them, the x's or the y's do not eliminate. Stop right there and say, I gotta go back and rethink this. I gotta do something else because this is not working. Okay? Okay, let's go to the backside and make a decision about what are all the options we have. We only want to rename one of them, so what's one of the options we could do? What's one thing we could do? Oh, give me an idea of what we could do. What's one thing we could do?
Could you multiply the bottom equation by 2 to the bottom?
Okay, so if we multiply the bottom equation by 2, your goal is to get
Or
the
-2.
y's to eliminate, and if we only did a positive 2, would the y's eliminate? No, we'd have to do a -2, wouldn't we? Okay, so that's an option. What's another option? What's another option in this one? Blaine?
Multiply the x by
You're going to say equation. So that's, which equation do you want to rename? The second one? Multiply the second one by -1 because you want the x's to change to Okay, so what would happen if we take negative 3x times negative 1 class? What is negative 3x times negative 1? Positive 3x, right? So now is positive 3x the opposite of x? Remember, we're trying to create, if you're going to try and create opposites with the x's, if you multiply by a negative 1, that makes that a positive 3, and is positive 3 the opposite of positive 1? It's not, is it? So, okay. Morgan?
Multiply the y in the second equation by -2.
Okay, that's the one we already talked about. That's the one Cole gave me. Multiply the second equation by -2. Okay. Christina?
We can multiply that in the first equation, x by 3.
Okay, but so if we multiply the first equation by 3, that x would get multiplied by 3, which would create the opposite of -3, but of course we would multiply the whole equation by 3, wouldn't we? So we could do that one. Are there any other options that we could do that would just create opposites with just one, renaming one of them? So we've talked about renaming the second one by multiplying by -2 to eliminate the y's. We've talked about we could multiply the first one, rename the first one, multiplying by 3 to eliminate the x's.
Could you do something with like 1/3 to the second one to make it?
You could,
Yes.
but what will happen if you multiply by 1? If you multiply by 1/3, first of all, the second one, if you multiply by 1/3, that will create a negative 1x, right? That's good, isn't it? But then what's it going to do?
Create a bunch of other fractions.
Yeah, create other fractions. 1/3 y, and then we're going to have to take 1/3 times that -5, and we're going to have a negative 5/3. So is that ugly? Kind of, yeah. I think we better go with one of our other two options. So we have, we can come up with options all day, actually. But let's take one that we think is going to be, pretty friendly to work with. So which one do you want to do? Do we rename the first one multiplied by 3? Let's do that one. Let's eliminate those. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's do that one. Let's take the first one, and we're going to multiply. Christian, you go from one thing to the next. Multiply both sides by 3. So we're rename, multiplying by 3. That's what we're doing. Okay. So we have its new name is 3x plus
Wouldn't it be 6? Oh, never mind.
6y equals 33. Now, be careful. Here's where you're oftentimes when, if things aren't going well and you start getting crazy answers, you're like, this doesn't seem right. What ends up happening oftentimes is we remember to multiply one side of the equation and we forget the other. It's very easy to forget that other side of the equation. Or, because all you're concentrating on is eliminating one of the variables, you only multiply that particular piece by it and don't worry about the other two pieces. So you need to make sure you do it to every piece of the equation. I want you to write that this is the first equation renamed. We just renamed the first equation. Which then means we have to do what? Add it to which one?
Go with the second one.
We have to add it to the second one. So we have to we have to start with, we'll have the second one be our equation that we'll start with. It doesn't really matter which one starts, but we have to use the other equation that didn't get renamed. And then our renamed one's going to get added to it because the goal is either the x's or the y's will eliminate. So what's negative 3x plus 3x? 0. So those do eliminate, don't they? So we eliminated our x's. Doesn't always have to be the x's. In the front, that's the first one we eliminated also, but it doesn't have to be the x's first. It can be the y's. But if one of them does not eliminate in this step, you need to go back and say something's not right here.
33 minus 5. 20.
So what's y equal?
4.
You should get y equal.
Didn't even have to use my calculator.
You shouldn't have had it. Good job. Okay. Now, you get to decide which equation you're gonna go put it back into that y value into to get your x. I'm gonna let you pick, you do it, let's see what, if we all get the same x value. We should. Anybody get x equals 3? Okay, anybody do the same one I did? Okay, so the others of you like the top one better, the x plus 2y equals 11? That is probably the easier one to put it into. You're less likely to make mistakes in that one. Okay, anybody use the renamed version? You did, Lane? You get x equals 3? We should all get x equals 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ordered pair solution is?
3, 4.
3, 4 is our solution.
Oh, if you feel more comfortable with your assignment,
Wait, I have a question.
You can't recheck bounds if you feel more comfortable, you wanna make sure you're right, yes or no?
Do we have to write this in the homework today?
I think it would be a really good idea to get in the habit of doing that, because you know what's gonna happen on Monday? We're gonna rename both of them. And then we're gonna have these two equations that are gonna get renamed, and now we have two new, what look like new equations. So now we got 4 different looks, and we gotta keep it straight, what's what, okay? So it's probably a good idea to do that, just a good habit to get into for a while, until you're good at this, until you're masters. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, the rest of the class time is yours then.